Story 1. My friend's dad was a dentist. One day he found Crest white strips in her bedroom. He acted like it was black tar heroin. He was like, "Victoria, what have I told you about what these things will do to your teeth? Where did you get these? Where did you get them?" She was like, "They're just free samples that came in the mail. I swear, I wasn't even going to use them." So, that, also alcohol. My parents don't drink, so it was always interesting coming across a slightly tipsy parental figure. Story 2. They were a living room family. My family was a stay-in-your-own-room or space kind of family. It took some getting used to, but I eventually loved how every activity could somehow involve every person in the house. Sister wants to watch a movie? Dad will make the popcorn, we'll get the blankets. Come on, there's room on the couch for everyone. Mom is going in the backyard to garden? Well, we're all going to sit outside for the afternoon until dinner when she's done. Their parents became good friends with mine, and now that I'm an adult with my own kids, we are also a living room family. My parents and brother will come out of their respective spaces to spend time doing nothing with us. And it's because of my best friend. Story 3. My friend's parents had a unique bedtime story tradition. Instead of fairy tales, they read us the instruction manuals for appliances. Nothing like drifting off to sleep with dreams of dishwashers. Story 4. More than one box of cereal can be open and used at one time. Not like open, but in my house you couldn't break the seal on a new box of cereal without finishing the current box of cereal entirely. At my friends' houses, there were always multiple cereals to choose from for breakfast on any given morning. Story 5. My friends' parents could afford to fill their fridge but hated sharing with my friends. My mom would never fill the fridge, but if I had friends over, she always made sure they were fed with something. Story 6. Moms did all the work, and Dad sat down and drank beer while watching a game. My folks had a division of labor that worked for them, which included Dad doing most of the cooking and Mom handling the laundry. Neither drank. Someone thought they were doing a favor when they visited by leaving several beers behind in our refrigerator, and they sat there for 6 months until I gave them to a friend. To be fair, Mom liked a little wine at Christmas. Library cards were valued, so a lot of reading was going on. I had no idea how much football was a thing until high school, and there was an absurd fascination with various teams. I'm gonna go read now. Story 7. My friends' families would actually sit down at dinner and have conversations with each other. I was amazed. At my house, my mother would put a meal in front of me at the kitchen table, then take her dinner, go into her bedroom, close the door, and eat her dinner while she read a book. I had the dog and the cat for company. My mother never understood why I loved having dinner at my friends' houses. Story 8. My family is all about taking shoes off at the door, but my best friend's family would just walk around with their sneakers on like it was no big deal. Blew my mind. Story 9. A friend of mine, his family had a drawer with snacks in it. Nutty bars, vanilla wafers, fruit roll UPS, whatever. At my house, we had ingredients. And if anyone ever brought a box of cookies home, it was gone in a day. Story 10. Stuff all over the place. Not really trash and not so much that one would consider them hoarders, but like the complete antithesis to order. My friend's bedroom and closet looked like someone backed a truck of stuff up to the room and shoved it all out, and he decided to just stick with that aesthetic. Story 11. I had a friend with a very strict and grumpy stepfather. If he was home, we had to be absolutely silent, like totally silent. He would yell from across the house if he could hear our speaking voices. Totally insane to me that the noise of placing a spoon in the sink would infuriate him. I can't imagine living like that. Story 12. My parents are super high conflict. They've been married 33 years and they're literally always arguing. They seem to feed off of conflict. And it's not even big stuff. On the most recent trip, my mom got so mad at my dad for putting green chiles in the rice. "You know I don't like green chiles. You ruined this rice on purpose because you didn't want me to eat it." I had to hear a 20-minute argument about green chiles on rice. Being in the car is a constant bickering about the driver driving incorrectly. I didn't realize this wasn't normal until I started hanging out with my husband's family. They could just chill, watch television, and make small talk. If someone messed up someone else's food, Oh well, it's not the last meal you're ever going to eat. My bad. It was a revelation to me that you could exist without a perpetual state of conflict. Story 13. Did not hit their kids when they were angry or when the kids misbehaved. I saw one friend spread her legs, place her hands on her hips, throw back her head, and yell, "No!" in her mother's face. I would have gotten a N- out before my mom slapped me in the mouth. I was shocked. Story 14. They had genuine communication. Like actual conversations where people said what they meant instead of passive-aggressively slamming cabinet doors. Wild. Story 15. This is a weird one, but my friend's mom was an obsessive clean freak, whereas my parents were regular sane people. I really admired her work. She washed her car every other day. She mopped their garage. Everything was always perfect over there. I was obsessed with her attention to detail, so now, 40 years later, I do stuff like mop my garage. I had a friend in high school whose family was the opposite. They were wealthy but slobs. I remember they had a relatively small laundry room, so they piled their dirty laundry in the garage. The pile was the size of a small car. I haven't seen anything like that since. Story 16. Ordered different food when they got Chinese. I was offered to stay for dinner, and I'm expecting egg fried rice and battered chicken drenched in a sugary sauce like usual, but instead it was normal healthy options, and the mother had boiled regular white rice rather than bought it in. I saw it too with pizza, ordering the alternative ones with vegetables or anchovies rather than just the meat feast dripping with oil. Story 17. The kids didn't help clean up after dinner and apparently had zero chores. It blew my mind and made me feel weird every time. I still wonder how they ended up as adults. Story 18. My friend's family cut their pizza with scissors, and if you started pulling a slice from the box and the cheese stuck to the rest of the pizza, the dad would get the scissors and cut the cheese string. Story 19. The mother sat at the head of the table and prepared everyone's plate. Never asked what you wanted or how much. She fixed a plate and it was passed down the table. Story 20. My friend had a strict mother who wouldn't let you drink anything with any meal you had. You had to wait until the whole meal was finished and then drink water. The sandwich was so dry. Story 21. Most of their dads sat in a recliner and watched sports on television a lot. Also, their parents were married. They never opened the windows, and the house smelled stale. Story 22. He kissed her on the mouth and placed her on his lap. She was 15 years old and he still did that, and I always thought it was very strange. I think he was a sexual predator. After seeing this, I never went to her house again because I was afraid of him. Story 23. Had a friend in high school whose dad collected toys. So almost the entire house had pegboards installed on the walls, and there were action figures about 3 deep in almost every room. Then there were stacks of other larger action figures and stuff like that weren't on pegs all over the place too. It was pretty weird, and now I'm really interested to know what happened to all of them. I think the dad thought they'd be worth money like original Star Wars toys from the 70s and 80s, but I really doubt it. Maybe he broke even, but who knows? Story 24. Keeping junk food in the house at all times was foreign to me. My mom would let us have treats, but only when we were out and about. It was an incentive for us to be on good behavior in public, and we would grab an ice cream or pick out a candy bar. Going to a friend's house with a pantry full of candy and cookies was crazy to me. I went wild when I was there. Story 25. I had a friend in elementary school who was low income, as was I. We spent lots of time sledding behind the price chopper in a small town in Nova Scotia. Something her mother did when we had sleepovers always amazed me. She would come to us at midnight. We were 9-year-old girls, so I was sure there would be anger, to ask if we wanted chicken wings, pizza, veggies, or any kind of snack imaginable. I often wonder as an adult if she did that purposefully for us. It was a fond memory of something that seemed like such a no-go in my house, but they made it seem like a cool little secret. Getting to eat chicken wings with ranch at midnight as a 9-year-old girl was pretty fun. I never told my mom. Story 26. My family were somewhat prudish. A friend of mine's single mother would make her sons and me do everything when visiting. We would cook, clean up, and serve her. She would lounge around and request drinks to be brought to her. We were around 10 to 12 years old and would mix her vodka with orange juice and bring them to her. As she got drunker, she would remove more of her clothing until she was bare from the waist up and often only in her panties. It was a weird experience. Story 27. They drank water. At my house, there was always a stock of juice and soda for us kids, coffee, tea, and alcohol for adults. I was never encouraged or made to drink water. My best friend's place. Come in from playing, water. Having a snack, water. Staying for dinner, water. Story 28. They bought clothes for their kids. My parents were so broke that they couldn't afford clothes. I wore whatever was donated to me by the school, or I would skip school to work in construction so I could afford my things. Story 29. No meat on Friday. I was the only Protestant in my neighborhood. I remember one little girl, who was a rival for my little boyfriend's affections, coming over and saying, "Marky, I just wanted to tell you that it's Friday, and here you are, eating bologna sandwiches at Missy's house." Story 30. They chain-smoked inside. We didn't hang out at his house much. I remember when he slid a framed picture on the wall to the side to show me how dark the wall was compared to behind the picture. Story 31. I stayed with my girlfriend's family for a few days during one college break. They had a rule at breakfast that you could never have just a single type of breakfast cereal. It always had to be a mix of two different boxes. But not just any two. It had to be flakes with flakes or O's with O's. I don't know what Captain Crunch matched with. I had toast. Story 32. Timely. I discovered they were an Everyone Open Christmas Presents All at Once family. I came from a huge family with 10 kids, a fundamentalist family, so each kid got one present, and we went around and opened them one at a time, youngest to oldest. It was weird to experience a family where everyone got several gifts, as well as stockings. Story 33. I used to spend a lot of time at one friend's house, and I ended up eating dinner there often. One time, I complimented the meal by saying how normal and American the food was, compared to my white American parents who always tried to make weird things. I found out years later that his mother was very offended by that offhand comment. Story 34. Not only did their parents express love for one another, but they actually liked each other. I can count on one hand the number of times I've seen my parents kiss. When I was growing up, they vehemently hated each other. It was also really jarring not to see my friends get physically punished. I grew up getting hit, screamed at, tossed around, and smacked. My mom would verbally abuse me, sometimes in front of other people if she let the facade slip. I always just assumed that was normal. I remember having a meltdown when I realized that my friends weren't being smacked or having their weight criticized constantly, or getting screamed at in public for minor things, that it wasn't normal. My friends started telling me that their parents were noticing it and saying how it wasn't normal and that they felt bad for me. Story 35. When growing up, I was taught to lock the door when using the bathroom to save both you and others the embarrassment of accidentally walking in on you. At two different friends' houses, I was yelled at by their parents when doing this. We do not lock doors in this house. Story 36. Made cake every day because there were 5 kids, and their mom was home in bed with lupus. Everyone would come home from school, do their homework quietly, and play without disturbing mom. When I got invited over after school, my friend opened up a cupboard full of cake boxes and frosting, and they were discussing what type of cake to make that day. I thought that was really sweet and a nice family activity. They didn't seem to have a lot of junk food from what I recall, so while it wasn't the healthiest thing, if that was how the family coped and bonded, I was all for it. I think of them often whenever I make a cake, just because. Story 37. They were not allowed to sit down for dinner or eat until the father took a bite first. If he worked late, no one ate until he got home. I was over at my friend's house, and her mom called us to the dining room for food. When I went to sit down, my friend grabbed my arm and said I could not sit until her dad came. He took his sweet time, and after they prayed, he talked for ages, so we had to sit and just look at the food until he took a bite. I never had dinner there again. Story 38. In one of the neighborhoods I lived in, there were a lot of other chaplains' families. Most were fine with some differences, like the Mormon family who cooked real food for their big fancy dogs and weren't allowed to go out on Sundays. This one family was just so weird, and I don't know which denomination they were, but I don't think that matters. The mother had those kinds of big eyes that come off as a little bit intense all the time. They had a system of tokens to allow their children to watch television, play, or go outside. For example, doing chores to earn the tokens to be able to have any sort of leisure time. The mother offered the system to my mom and other neighborhood mothers, but no one was interested. One time my brother looked after their kids and put on a movie they had by their entertainment center, Jungle to Jungle, which if I remember correctly is PG-13. They were so angry that he played this movie for them, my brother or any of us, never looked after their kids for them again. The kids were weird and sheltered, more so than the average chaplain's family or the Mormon kids in that neighborhood. Though the thing that stuck out to me in childhood was that the mother cooked carrots in honey, and I thought it was too sweet. I preferred raw carrots. I was opposed to the token system too and was relieved not to have to put up with that. There's more from other posts, but that family stands out.